Today I'm going to give away a free t-shirt, bring you a Comic Hero Throwdown Showdown fight, bring you comics news, and reveal the books I bought this week. How y'all doing? I'm Victor, and you are watching the Comic Hero Show. Now kick that intro! Welcome to this week's edition of the Comic Hero Show. I'm your host, Victor Nunley, and I am the Comic Hero. And I hope y'all are continuing to stay safe during this global pandemic, and we're going to get through this. And when this is all over, when the curve is finally flattened, don't settle on living life or wanting things back to the way they were. Try to strive to live a better life. Let this be a lesson that we need to live cleaner lives, not just in the physical aspect, but also in the spiritual aspect. All right, now this month is Autism Awareness Month, and I just wouldn't feel right by letting this month pass by and not raise awareness of it. Now, autism is a developmental disorder where the range and severity of symptoms can vary widely. Common symptoms include difficulty with communication, difficulty with socialism, obsessive interest, and repetitive behaviors. And I personally know some people with autism, and they see the world completely different than how we see it. And sometimes the way they see it, they probably see it a lot simpler than the way we do, and sometimes sometimes it does. A lot of things that we consider simple doesn't really make sense to them. Now, me personally, I don't label people with autism. You know what I see when I see a person with autism? A person. And if you're watching this and you're living with autism, or if you're a family member of somebody with autism, I'm with y'all, and I'm for y'all. And this is an Autism Comic Hero tee. The Autism Awareness themed Comic Hero tee. I wore this for the first time last year, and you see the puzzle pieces that represents autism, and of course the color of choice is blue, and then also there's the autism ribbon. And again, I personally know some folks who either have autism or know their families. And this episode is for y'all. And I hope y'all enjoy it. And I hope I put smiles on all of your faces. All right, it's time to give away a free t-shirt. Alright, on last week's episode, I asked which Batman villain was temporarily banned by the Comic Code Authority in 1954. Now, I gave some hints on last week's episode. The first hint was this villain made their debut in Batman #1 back in 1940. The second hint was that Lee Merriweather, Julie Newmar, Eartha Kitt, Michelle Pfeiffer, Halle Berry, and Anne Hathaway all portrayed this character on the big and small screens. Now, the third hint is that Zoe Kravitz is going to play the role of this character in the upcoming Batman movie that's going to come out in a few years. Well, the correct answer is Catwoman. Now, the Comic Code Authority thought that she was too inappropriate to be in comics. And after the popularity of the character on the Batman TV show, the Comic Code Authority allowed DC to bring her back to the funny books. So the correct answer is Catwoman. 15 people have answered correctly, and because they've answered correctly, their names get entered in the drawing for a free tee, and that drawing takes place right now. So the winner of the free tee for this week's episode of the show is Isaiah Adams from West Monroe, Louisiana. So congratulations, Isaiah. You win yourself a free Comic Hero tee. Alright, here's the question for next week's episode, and this is a Stan Lee question. Stan Lee once gave himself a dare to create a hero that nobody would like, and then force people to like them. Who was it? Everyone who answers correctly will be in a drawing for a free tee on next week's episode of the show. Alright, now Mike Hart from Monroe, Louisiana has requested a Comic Hero Throwdown Showdown fight, and this one features a character that lives up to his last name and another character that lives up to his last name. And they're very violent. Representing DC, we have Vigilante, and representing Marvel, we have the Punisher. These two are going to duke it out in a segment I like to call
The Comic Hero Throwdown Showdown.
Welcome to the Comic Hero Throwdown Showdown. Today is Vigilante versus the Punisher. Vigilante is an expert hand-to-hand combatant and marksman who possesses regeneration. The Punisher is highly skilled in guerrilla warfare and military tactics, close quarters combat, martial arts, infiltration, stealth, knife fighting, marksmanship, and demolitions. He also has special operations training. Who will win? The adjectives knockout and dragout aren't enough to describe this fight. The Punisher would attempt series of punches and kicks, and only land less than half of them due to Vigilante blocking some of them. Punisher would then play dirty by delivering a chop block to Vigilante just as he's coming to a vertical base. Punisher would then pull a knife and waste no time slitting Vigilante's throat. Punisher wins. But wait! This proves to be unsuccessful due to Vigilante's regeneration. As soon as he recovers, Vigilante grabs his gun and delivers 5 gunshots to the Punisher's legs, arms, and spine. He then ends the fight by snapping the Punisher's neck. Vigilante wins, and that concludes this fight on the Comic Hero Throwdown Showdown. Thank you, Mike Hart, for that fight. I hope y'all enjoyed it, and I'll have another one for next week. Now it's time for Comically Speaking, so without further ado, let's talk comics! Alright, there are 2 things that I'm going to talk about in this segment of Comically Speaking, and the first one is the news that Geoff Johns is going to produce and showrun the new Green Lantern series coming to HBO Max. Now, HBO Max, of course, is a new streaming service from HBO. I mean, they're really following suit with other streaming services like Netflix, Disney Plus, and DC Universe. And honestly, I couldn't really think of anyone else to do this but Geoff Johns. He has really made an impact with the Green Lantern franchise beginning back in 2004, Green Lantern Rebirth, which ushered the return of Hal Jordan, and then of course the Green Lantern series that starred Hal Jordan, and the Green Lantern Corps series, which focused on Kyle Rayner, John Stewart, and Guy Gardner, which are the other 3 Green Lanterns of Earth, and you know, he's and not only that, but also he's been on Superman. He's, you know, he started out, you know, writing, you know, The Flash, and of course we know he co-developed the Flash TV series that's on the CW right now. And honestly, I can't think of anyone else to do this. I mean, it doesn't matter whether it's comics or media. This guy has the Midas touch. And you know, anything that Geoff Johns, you know, writes, I read. I mean, how can anyone not? Can't wait. Alright, now the second thing. Now at the end of last year, in an issue of Superman, we were all surprised to find out that Superman had revealed his identity to the public. There are 2 one-shots that served as fallouts to this happening that I currently read. And one was called Superman Heroes and the other one was called Superman Villains. Now in Superman Heroes, we find we find out the how all the heroes and the supporting characters on there, how they're all dealing with it. Batman isn't very happy about it, and Wonder Woman wasn't happy at first, but she's coming to terms with it. And then just about everyone else is thrilled. And then I'm reading Superman Villains, and the very first, now this, of course, this talks about how the villains feel about it, knock on wood. But at the very beginning of it, we find out something that now before I say this, in most, whether it's TV shows, movies, or comics, there's always this this little thing that or this little thing that we see. I mean, that's kind of irrelevant, but it's there, and it's called an Easter egg. This wasn't really an Easter egg. This was an Easter basket. At the very beginning of it, we see Clark Kent flying back to Smallville, and who's waiting on him? Jonathan and Martha Kent. So DC has been keeping a secret from us for 4 years that Jonathan and Martha Kent have been alive and well in the DC universe ever since Rebirth. And I love this movie because I think one of the one things that makes Superman such a dynamic character is his family. And the last time that Jonathan Kent had been seen in a book, in terms of current story arcs, was during the pre-Flashpoint DC universe in a miniseries that ironically was written by Jeff Johns with art by Gary Frank called Brainiac, where Superman finally went up against the real Brainiac and not copies or probes. And unfortunately, Jonathan Kent dies of a heart attack. And when some of the things that Bendis has done, now make no mistake, I still believe that Bendis writing that Superman reveals his identity to the public is a bad idea. But and I stand by that, and nothing is going to stop me from standing by that. But writing in his character, his adopted parents are alive. Wow, that kind of makes me look forward to reading issues of Superman in Action Comics. And we find out that some of the villains are a little hacked off about it, or think that they're out for blood. Mongol even gets killed by his own son, and Mongol says, "Oh, you want to be an alien and not rule the planet you're on, and instead you want to be like them? I'll give you some. I got some for you." And then also Marisol Leone, buys the Daily Planet, but then Lois Lane ends up revealing her to be the leader of the Invisible Mafia. And there's going to be retribution for that. And and then a whole bunch of other things. Winslow Schott becomes a member of Checkmate, and Checkmate is now an organization that has been retooled to take down the terrorist organization known as Leviathan. And so many other things. We see other villains. We see Lex Luthor. We see Supergirl after she was infected by the Batman Who Laughs. So many great things, and I'm really looking forward to reading, Superman in Action Comics and all the books that are tied into those two. It's really going to be great. All right, that's it for Comically Speaking. Now let's get to the comics I bought this week.
Comic books I bought this week.
All right, first up are Spider-Man number 2 and Spider-Man number 3. Now, these are 2 issues of a miniseries that's written by J.J. Abrams and his son Henry Abrams, with art by Sarah Pichelli. And this talks about a future where Spider-Man and Mary Jane have a son named Ben. And while fighting crime in New York, Spider-Man is he's fighting crime, and then Mary Jane dies. And then a few years had passed by, and then Aunt May, who hated the fact that Peter Parker had given up being Spider-Man, decided that it was time for Ben to take on the mantle. And while this is going on, Peter is he's become very bitter ever since Mary Jane had died. I mean, he's become all about him, and all about his job, and less about being a father to Ben. And then he becomes Spider-Man, and these two issues are a continuation of that. All right, next up are two oldies but goodies. The Incredible Hulk number 400, and a miniseries entitled Avengers: The Terminatrix Objective, number 1. All right, that's 4, which brings the total number of comics that I bought since December of 1997 to 9,960. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Here's a question again for a free tee for next week's episode of the show. Stan Lee once gave himself a dare to create a hero that nobody would like and then force people to like them. Who was it? Everyone who answers correctly been entered in the drawing for a free tee on next week's episode of the show. And congratulations to Isaiah Adams from West Monroe, Louisiana, who won a free tee on this week's episode. All right, this month is coming to a close, but again, I just had to raise awareness of autism and let people that that live with who have autism, let them know that it's okay to see the world in your own view. There's nothing wrong with being different. And also this episode is for the families of those with autism. And then also, I hope y'all continue to stay safe during this pandemic. I know that it's hard, and I said it. It's hard, but it's also easy. And I know it's hard because not everyone is a homebody. No one likes to stay at home a lot. Everyone wants to go out. Everyone wants to go somewhere. But my thing is, if you do, wear a mask and try to keep your distance from people. But we're going to get through this. But the only way we're going to get through this is to adhere by any stay-at-home order that we may have. Now, I know there are quite a few states who are starting to reopen. That's all great, but I still believe that we should still socially distance ourselves from each other. I mean, I believe that's really paramount until this coronavirus is no more. And I know that there's some people that say, well, we can't have an economy. Well, what about the economy? Well, I know how important that might be, but let me leave you with this thought. You can't have an economy without people. All right, and lastly, 40 away from 10,000 comics. And, oh man, I'm really looking forward to the episode where I get to 10,000 comics. I really can't wait for y'all to see the shirt that I'm wearing once I get to the milestone. Just like I have in years past, whenever I reached 1,000, the 1,000 comics marker, or every 1,000 comics that I reach, I always start by not wearing a Comic Hero tee, and I choose not to do that. This is something I started doing when I got to 7,000. I just didn't wear a Comic Hero tee, and that's something that I'm going to continue to do. I'm going to continue to do it when I get to 10,000. I'm going to continue to do it when I get to 11,000, and so forth. And really pumped about it. And yeah. All right, I'm Victor Nunley on the Comic Hero. I'll see you next week for episode 309. So until then, be safe, be blessed, be a hero.